Konnichiwa.
Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast.
Kia ora, Catherine.
Konnichiwa, Jane.
Wow, are we halfway through the year or what?
What
Holy
happened?
moly. Holy moly.
It seems like only yesterday I was actually in New Zealand in summertime, and now here we are, almost rainy season in Japan. I can't believe
Rainy season
it.
is coming. I think some parts of Japan are already officially in rainy season. Not Tokyo yet. Not far away though.
I think not far away. It's been raining through the night, but today brilliant blue skies. So we're just waiting for the announcement. I love how Japan does that. The announcement of cherry blossom season or the announcement of rainy season.
Officially rainy season.
We can officially feel it in our body, our skin, our bones, right? It's quite funny, but it's really good to know what's happening. And Japan's very controlled by the seasons.
Yeah. So out come all the snails and all of the hydrangeas. It's snail and hydrangea season. Did you know? In June. Yes.
I didn't know about snails. I knew about hydrangeas for sure. And I've also planted some cornflowers outside my window. So I'm going to see if and I went outside just a bit earlier and put some water on them, and I can see some little seedlings coming up. So it's such a nice season, really. It's all about, looking after things that are coming through nice and green, but also looking after ourselves too, right?
Yes, it's a tricky time of year coming, so it is important to look after yourself. So we are together attempting.
Team Jandals.
Team Jandals is taking better care of themselves officially from last week. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. From last week.
Yeah, we're in the middle of our detox situation right now. The heads are a bit woozy or whatever. Yeah.
It's so funny, isn't it, when you pull away from sugar and from carbs and grains like bread, that your body starts to detox literally, and you get the headaches and you get sort of withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah. And dairy.
That's right.
All the good things. Yes.
All the good things, yes. Yeah. And then after a couple of days, you get used to it. But that withdrawal is quite amazing, how your body gets so used to having sugar pushed down it.
Yeah, I was definitely running my life on sugar until last week, and that was not great either. So yes, our guest today also talks about this, but we're interested in this gut health, improving your gut health. And today our guest will be talking to us more about some of the amazing products that are going to be coming out in Japan very soon.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very exciting. I love how they invest in what they call a portfolio of nutrition and ingredient applications that are sourced from natural biomatter in New Zealand. And one of the things she tells us about, which was really interesting, was the kiwi fruit application, wasn't it? The powdered kiwi fruit. And that's going to be introduced in Japan in around August this year.
Yes.
Hopefully.
All going well. Fingers crossed for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's anti-inflammatory. It helps your metabolic health. And so I think we'll be starting on that too as Team Jandals, Jane. Getting some of that.
Sounds
kiwi
delicious
fruit powder.
too. Right?
I know, it does sound good. It does sound good. Yeah.
Tastes good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking a probiotic right now, and there's a teeny flavor, but it's actually knowing that it's doing really good to your gut health really helps. So I can't wait to try this out. And it was really a super conversation with her, talking about the things that they've got planned and where they're at and their philosophy on their business, which is 500 plus years. Thinking out
intergenerational plan there.
Amazing.
Putting into effect.
Amazing. So it's a really great episode that at times with perfectly with how you and I are looking after ourselves. We hope everyone else listening is also taking care of their health as you go into winter in New Zealand. I know my mum just had her flu vaccination, and we're all sort of thinking about health. Maybe June's health month. So
yeah, we'll let you know how we're going next time in our next episode.
Let's tune in on our how many kilos we've lost by then.
Or, how many less pains we have. Exactly,
less pain. That's what I want. Yeah, ultimately, weight loss is a side effect, but feeling good and being able to be really energized for your work and your life and your family and friends is the most important thing. So,
yeah, let's hear it from Miriana. Kia ora, Miriana. Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast. Great to have you on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity.
So we like to start off with a warm-up question. So our question for you today is, what's at the top of your to-do list next time you visit Japan?
The top of the list, I always love really connecting into a place. And one way I like to do that is really through food. And of course, Japan is, a place where the food is amazing. And of course, we're doing business up in Japan. And so, of course, connecting and the customers and also the friends that we have in Japan too is always top of mind when we're coming into country.
And so what do you like to have when you get off the plane? Do you have any things you head for something in particular?
I think it's just being in the place, but I always start with sashimi. I was really fortunate a few years back when I visited one of our customers, and he is a professional chef and runs a great business there, and part of his office is a kitchen. And so therefore nice. We had the luxury of him giving, telling us about his business. And first course we had was sashimi. And so it was, crayfish, it was orange roughy. So, things necessarily I wouldn't have like that. And so I do, really like my sashimi and different types of sashimi. So,
Catherine, what's your first thing you have when you get back to Japan after you've been away in New Zealand? Or do you have anything you like?
Oh, that's a really good question. When I come back to Japan, what do I like out of it? Japanese food? I really miss udon, like noodles, when I'm away. Right. Because, New Zealand can maybe make them at Japanese restaurants in New Zealand. I don't really go to Japanese restaurants in New Zealand because I'm so spoiled by being in Japan. As you just said, Miriana, with the sashimi and everything, why would you have udon in New Zealand? But that's probably what I like when I come back, with a sort of small, light broth, not too much decoration, just a really simple udon would be mine. How about you, Jane?
Yeah, it's a bit of soul food, isn't it? The old udon.
Soul food.
Yeah, I would go for a really nice miso soup. Just get some miso soup, and then it feels like it's getting the soul shit into your bloodstream and things. I'm not sure what it is, but it's just so good after you've been away, and come back, have a really good bowl of miso soup.
That's very true. Well, so excited to have you here, Miriana. We're going to put your full bio into the show notes. We received that from your team, and so thank you for that. But we know that you are the director of Wakatū Incorporated, and you're based out of Nelson in New Zealand. We know that you have several businesses that you are the caretaker for underneath that umbrella. So we're really excited to hear from you today, and especially your general manager of AuOra. Have I pronounced that correctly or not? Please correct me.
No, you have, and just probably a couple of corrections. It's Wakatū Incorporation.
Wakatū, thank you.
Yeah, Wakatū, and AuOra is perfect. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you so much. Wakatū and AuOra is great. Okay, and so you do a lot of nutrition and ingredient applications that you source from real natural biomatter in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we think it's such a different aspect to lots of the food and bev coming into Japan. It's very, very special. And we know it's very central to your heart. We're honoured to have you here today for this kōrero, and we'd love to hear from you first a little bit more about your background.
Thanks, Catherine. Well, I'll start. Ko tainui me mā tātua oku waka, ko Ngāti Rangi Nui, Ngāti Rārua, oku iwi, ko te awhina te marae, ko Miriana Stephens tōku ingoa. So just in, I guess, my mihi, the way that I've introduced myself really connects me to the place that I come from. I come from two tribal groups, actually. So I always joke that my family in Tauranga, where I'm of Ngāti Rangi Nui descent, love kiwi fruit. And then my family here in Te Tauihu, and specifically Motueka, and my grandparents grew the good things in life, tobacco and hops. So, I've got a bit of a mix, but really, farmers.
Yeah.
And so, that's quite important to me. And of course, so I belong to this place, and I belong to those people. And I was really fortunate. I grew up with my grandparents, and, my cousin often says this about, the way that we've been raised is, and their mantra is really, if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. So when you start to have that type of upbringing, where my grandparents were very much about service and helping others, that was always going to be something that I felt, huge responsibility and privilege. So I grew up here in Motueka. The families needed a lawyer, another lawyer in the family. So I went off to law school, and also because there was a great, show on TV at the time, LA Law. So I wanted a bit of that. Didn't quite play out like that, I might say.
No, it's a fallacy, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. But, again, getting a lot of great skill sets. Wakatū Incorporation supported me in my studies. So I was one of the first scholarship recipients. And then over the years, as I worked for a law firm, Māori Land Court, started my own business, then came through the first associate director for Wakatū. And I would say that, that succession and leadership by design, and then was elected by the families of Wakatū maybe 14, 15 years ago to serve on the board. And of course, have taken an executive director's role to run one of our new businesses for Wakatū. So that's really a snapshot, I think. And in the mix of that, of course, 4 children.
So just throw that in there.
Yeah, you don't think you're getting any older, until you see them, and they're celebrating. My baby, she's 19, and my eldest is 26. So keeping it real. It's been a fantastic life and journey to date.
Right, because from law school and then jumping into the business, it's quite different. Did you feel that pull to come into the family arena from early?
Yeah, I think I probably felt that beforehand, because living on the lands, and I think about Wakatū's journey, the families pulled their land interests when we finally got some of our land back in 1977, and some of those, and we got a little bit back then, and so that's how we've built the base of Wakatū. We haven't had a treaty settlement. It's been all on the back of just slowly building. But when we started to get some of our long-term leases back, they happen to have kiwi fruit pack houses, or they had apple trees on them. Next minute, that's what we're doing.
Right.
So really, actually, we were owners of businesses in town. We own main, the most of the main street in Motueka. So for me, I was thinking, well, actually, we are in business, and so again, what are those skill sets that we need? But the board, I think, was quite keen at the time for me to go out and have some experience. And when I look at the associate directors coming through Wakatū at the moment, the majority of us have owned our own businesses. And there is a mix of us, don't get me wrong, but we've had, I guess, cut our teeth in terms of having those experiences. So you come in with a different, sort of mindset, skill set when you come to serve at different levels, of Wakatū.
Wow. So what was your business, can I ask? I'm very curious to know what else have you slipped in there? What were you doing?
And I did an exit a few years ago. So we actually had the largest small business and money management programs in New Zealand. So we were program developers, and actually I had plans to go international with them, but we were so busy here in New Zealand, we didn't need to. So, we wrote curriculum. We were the first people to do an Aotearoa based small business book that we published. I think it's the number 1 small business book in New Zealand. But what was really good is
book. I think
right.
But what was good about it was the case studies. Going through university. A lot of the case studies are actually American Airlines or whatever, but they were nothing around. Well, when they were all Indigenous case studies, actually, they came from we went to the US, Canada. We met the Donald Trump of Canada. There's all these sort of interesting situations we got ourselves into, but and then Australia, and here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, because actually we knew back in those days what was going to be really setting us apart was values, long-term, goals, and more of a holistic approach to business. So that's, I think, when I think about what we created, was really saying actually what was the new ways of actually creating sustainable businesses in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I'm really proud to have been part of that movement, and the amount of people that we were able to touch, and first Māori Aotearoa dictionary. So again, bringing te reo into homes and businesses, from a business context, and then of course the case studies. So yeah, it's
wow.
Yeah, it was a great business.
Just a little small business there, right?
Yeah, I know. And actually it's funny how the education space keeps, coming back, because now a lot of our programs or work that we do have quite a big education piece in them. Yeah. So I'm always ringing up going, can you guys, develop this? And so it's, I'm always wondered why I ended up there, especially coming, Catherine, coming out of law, and then suddenly I'm running this bloody
Hey, but it's all connected, I think.
It's all connected in the end.
It's all in the mix, and law will serve you very well through all kinds of different businesses and challenges and things that you do in your life, I believe. And then look at your small business, so-called small business, I'm putting inverted commas here, bringing you into now being able to go back and tie into education. It's just amazing how things just all fall into place. I think it's brilliant, right? So when you joined the company, right, what were your early sort of thoughts, aspirations, goals for that company when you joined? What did you do first, and how did you get yourself into it and get moving?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I'd had that relationship with the incorporation for a long time. And then when I finally, got a call to say, would I put my name forward for the board, and again, because you go through and you go, oh, am I ready? Can I serve? And all of those sorts of things. So you start overthinking things. And so I went sort of through that process, but I think the timing was right because I'd had a few years in my own business. The kids were getting older. So I thought, actually, yes, because to be fair, the directorships, they don't come up often, because we find that and the families elect the board members, but that's one of the, I think, the great things about Wakatū is really has been around the leadership and the stability of that leadership. So yeah, I guess I had that strong urge, and I was coming home a lot because my grandmother, at that time, she was still alive, so I still got a lot of family here, so I still strong pull to come home. And I also think too, what's great about our board in Wakatū was the opportunity, because the board members, after a while I'd served on the board, they said, all right, someone is going to Stanford or they're going, on a trip with other like-minded small businesses or food and beverage businesses. And so I think, that's when I sort of got the call up, because they said, oh, that's you. And they said, and you can go, but you have to really think about, actually, when you've got a 500-year intergenerational vision like we do, what we call the Pae Tawhiti, they said, well, we're in planning mode now for bringing that closer. So you're going to have to come back with something. So anyway, so
no pressure,
and so no pressure, and so I thought, well, that was a real privilege again to be able to be in that position. So yes, I did a couple of overseas trips with like-minded Māori food and beverage businesses. Really got into that sort of collaborative base, which was really good. Having others that you could bounce ideas off. Then went to Stanford with Tohono, which is leaders of agribusinesses in New Zealand as well as government, etc. And I think that was quite a turning point, because we had a really great, one of the great professors there was, started to talk about innovation and, the fact that it's quite challenging when you have a big business to actually, innovate. And so therefore, what were some models where they had seen case studies, I guess, in terms of where good innovation, was happening. So I sort of was able to come back with some of that thinking and pitch to the board at that time, well, if we're really thinking about our long-term vision and trying to bring it closer, then how about we set up it's basically an innovation cell within Wakatū to be able to, think about products of the future or solutions of the future. And intergenerational solutions. So it was really an opportunity to have a bit of free rein to pick that up. Now, that's not for the faint-hearted, because, you often take one step forward, 10 steps back. You spun out of different, the different business units. But I'm proud to say, what really came out of that was AuOra, which means to, navigate towards health and wellbeing. And on that basis, we set up basically our functional food and ingredient business, and also was able to start the journey around some of these intergenerational projects, and really around the well-being of what we call whenua ora, which is the well-being of our land and water, and tangata ora, the well-being of people. So we have quite a few other projects spinning around, and sometimes they get spun into groups, sometimes they're spun out because we have partners, but that's the mindset, the action, that AuOra undertakes and is responsible for.
Because I think we're probably jumping in with an assumption that everyone knows what Wakatū does, but perhaps we should take a step back and tell us about the different businesses with Kono, AuOra, and with Wakatū, what you are doing in each business. It's quite different, right? Related but different.
Yeah, sure. So Wakatū, we're a Māori family business, and we're based in the top of the South Island of New Zealand. If you were to drive across our estate, it would take about 4 hours. We, as I've mentioned, we're farmers of the land and sea. We whakapapa or connect into 4 tribal groups. So the families, they belong to 4 tribal groups, and those 4 tribal groups are Ngāti Koata, Ngāti Rārua, Te Aotearoa, and Ngāti Tama. But we're very much hapū, family-based in terms of our relationships, with each other. And, Wakatū, as I mentioned previously, we were formed in 1977. And I always remind myself and, of course, the families that we actually collaborated back then, because the families, that time we did, put our land holdings together to form Wakatū.
Yeah.
And so as we've evolved, there's really, I guess, sort of 4 parts to us. Manaaki is really the custodians or the kaitiaki of the wellbeing of our culture and our people. And, I often say that that's the heart of Wakatū. And so they're responsible for looking after our owners because we do care for their whakapapa, for their genealogy. We run a number of programs that range from our 10-year-olds, right through to our elders. And we do that because not everybody lives here in the top of the South. A lot of our owners live outside, and we've got a big owner base. There's 4,000 plus of us. So how we reconnect them with each other and with the whenua and the lands here is quite important. So, we have our young people come on courses. When I introduced myself, I connected myself into this place. Often they'll connect themselves into their mountains and into the rivers. But actually, those kids, when they come here, those young people, they swim the river, they paddle the ocean, they climb the maunga. So again, they're starting that connection, and then they'll know that they've got extended kin, they've got cousins, and so for us, that's really quite important. We start their career planning. We're very interested in terms of their families, how they're doing at school, because they usually then progress into our scholarship program. So Manaaki really looks after the people aspect and the culture, our brands. No brand goes out without our Manaaki because we have our elders sitting on that board, our cultural specialists that will have the final say in terms of our brands. Our next unit is whenua, and 70% of our assets are in land. We've had a slight rejig recently around our water space. They're responsible for all our cultural lands, all our commercial developments, so in quota and things like that. So that's whenua. And then we have Kono New Zealand, which is our export business, food and beverage. And Kono is it's really a kete or a basket that we had all our prized, our absolute best, food was served in a kono. And so we currently export to 35 plus countries around the world. We do have an office currently in Shanghai, and konos is it's respect for the land and sea. Love for the land, respect for the sea. When I think about kono New Zealand, again, we were big in beverages, so wine. I know we've got Tauihu wines going up into Japan. We've just bought a brewery. So Hop Federation, again, we grow hops, so there's some nice synergies, and we're a fully integrated business when it comes to our wine business. Horticulture, we grow apples, pears, kiwi fruit, and hops. And then we have just recently actually just sold our mussel business. And so therefore now we're into, I guess, an opportunity to think what's next for Kono New Zealand. And then we have AuOra, which is our new business unit focusing on functional foods and ingredients. And that's a totally new space for us. We're learning a lot, but, just really excited about the opportunities, and especially in Japan.
Yeah, that AuOra's products to come sound like they're going to be fantastic. Anything you can tell us, or is it still sort of in development? What's happening there?
So we're currently selling kiwi fruit powders. So we've got gold kiwi fruit powder, which is Livox, and green kiwi fruit powder, which is Actazin. So we've got a distributor up in Japan who is selling that on our behalf. And then we've got a portfolio of ingredients. So Aotearoa New Zealand has access to amazing resources. And I'm not really meant to say this, but there is there is waste streams, I guess, because everyone thinks, oh, there's actually a lot of value in waste streams. And so therefore, that's what we've seen the opportunity is to think, actually, how do we utilize it? And when you start to think about, we, especially here in this region, we've got access to, black currants, boysenberry, now fijoa. That's not even looking at the marine space. So therefore, for us, it's being able to package those opportunities up, supported by some of the research, some of the science that has been completed on those particular ingredients, and then being able to tell the story, all of that story for our customers. So, and again, then we utilise those ingredients in our own product because we're already exporting through Cornwall, New Zealand. We already have the experience. We've started to now formulate with those ingredients. And we are working with a customer currently to hopefully launch some of our new products in August of this year. So we're very, very excited about that. It's probably a bigger launch than I thought that we might be doing, but that's okay. And it's taken us, time to really put that together. But we've got a range that we've been working on. It's called the Good range. And it's really around, good chews, good bites, good bars, good sticks. It's pretty simple, but it's when you think about, healthy options, especially when I've seen through some of the customers that we've been dealing with, they want to transition from using, the amount of sugar, for example, that they've been using to sort of more natural options. Then our Good range really, satisfies that. So we're very excited about the launch that we'll be having. All fingers crossed, it'll be happening in August.
Super excited. We will keep our eyes open for your launch. Is it happening in New Zealand?
No, it'll be happening in Japan.
Oh, wow. We will be there.
Yeah, I know you
right?
have to be there. So we're just working through, what that will be looking like. So I think the team's very excited. I'm excited about it as well. What I've noticed about working up in Japan, things don't happen overnight. You've got to, persevere. It's all about relationships, building trust. And, when I think about, given we've gone through COVID, we were there a year ago, and the work that the team has managed to do, and I'm talking about, teams in both countries, I think it's absolutely amazing. We're really stoked.
What got you interested in Japan? Because, of course, this whole podcast is about Kiwis and Japanese doing amazing things with New Zealand and Japan. What was it about Japan that attracted you, and how have you found it? I mean, you're talking about the partnerships and the length of time it takes for things to happen, but how about the process so far? How's it gone?
When we were setting up AuOra, we did quite a lot of work in terms of, if we were looking at this functional food and ingredient space, where would we start? And of course, we had to choose the hardest market, right? Because
why not?
But we did it, and there was reasons behind that, because again, I talked about that research. We really liked their claim system in terms of, functional food claim system. And so we really liked that. To us, that's gold standard. Secondly, we looked at what was happening around the world. And, from a stability perspective, Japan's very stable, because, if I might look at China, I might look at America, and but I think so. There was that question. We looked at where investment was going and who was investing, and there was a lot of investment coming out of Japan. So, I might just say in Asia, for example, you're right, Japanese companies, they're really doing well in certain markets, Thailand, Vietnam. And so for us, it was like, well, actually, if we were looking at really long-term partnerships, and there's definitely a lot of the customers we work with are family businesses. We're a family business. We're there for the long haul. From a cultural perspective and values, there was a lot of synergy there, a lot of alignment. So, and that's what I've definitely found. And so I'm very, I feel like the relationships we've made, they're a part of our family. And so for us, we have relationships at all levels, from president, right through to the operational team. So I feel like we've got it, those relationships at every level. So that's quite important to us. And for us, if we had a strategy going global, we would like to think that we would partner with the Japanese from New Zealand, made in Japan, out to the world. That's really what we're wanting to achieve, because we can't do every market. We don't have enough resource, and neither should we. But for us, partnerships and collaboration is really important to what we do at AuOra, what we do at Wakatū. So that's what we've really, I think, focused on. when building our program into Japan. So for us, it was really just a no-brainer that we would start there.
I can see that so many sort of things that would work well together, and the Japanese would appreciate your long-term vision, your value of furusato, as they call it here in Japan, which is your hometown. Have you noticed that as well? Like, people will always ask you, where are you from? And they're always from somewhere. It might not be where they live, but they have their connection back to their hometown. And it's so important. They're always going back there like 2 or 3 times a year to maintain their family graves and pay respects to their ancestors. So there's so many things that are similar. Is there anything that you were like, whoa, we're so similar, but also really different, things that popped up that, well, not just when you're here, but in your dealings with Japanese businesses?
I did wonder, because I wasn't, too sure how they might perceive a woman, coming to the meetings and, sort of being the boss. So I was very cognizant of that. So I said to my colleague, and who's Seishi Gomabuchi, he works with us at Wakatū, and I said to him, Seishi-san, from a protocol perspective and coming into meetings and things like that, what do we do? And he was quite clear, no, Miriana-san, you're the boss. But, I'm always, so it was just some of those sort of questions, and again, protocols sort of a meeting. So I would say, a little bit more formal in some respects, again, because that's how we start the relationship and things like that. I think in New Zealand, I wouldn't say that we're casual, but, I think it's just, I'm very respectful when I'm in other people's, places. We respect their protocols and how they want to conduct things. And so there was that aspect. And then, of course, when you reciprocate and they come here, and then I'm having to say to Seishi, well, when they come here, their first port of call will be to the marae, because we have to welcome them. They're part of our family. So that's part of our tradition and protocols. Again, so we discuss those things. So I would hope to think that, well, I think we've been received well under their tradition. And to be fair, now customers taking us out, I think what you said, Jane, I've been to different places around Japan now, and visited, really cultural significant spaces and places that they belong to. So when they've come to us and I take them around on the land, they get a feeling. And then I notice the next time I go back, might be a meeting in the office, but now we're out. So I'm not too sure if there was anything different. I just think it's just the way that you start your relationships and you respect each other. And I think, like you said, there's so many similarities. And I think that's been our point of difference. What I've noticed is we've been able to achieve a lot more quicker because of that value of Manaakitanga, of caring, of hosting, respect. I think that's really, I've noticed a massive difference just in terms of, because people go, it takes so much longer. How come you did that? You got there, and I was like, I'm not sure, but I think it's just, that Manaakitanga.
Yeah, and you've probably heard that expressed as omotenashi in Japan. And there's that whole similarity and connection in those two words, I believe.
And also they would have seen, what you were saying and what you're doing are the same thing, and they were able to trust you. You were in integrity. They felt, these are people we can trust. They are doing what they say. We can see it. And they've shown us the way that they do it, which is a little bit different to how we do it. But yeah, that sort of probably sped things up for you there. Whereas
we know that's one of your values, right, Pono? So doing what you say and saying what you're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And we have a lot of fun too, so whilst yes, there's business.
I bet you show them how to.
Although I can't say I haven't been on karaoke because I just think, I don't really want to, because once I start, I won't be able to stop. And so everyone's coming like, we've got karaoke.
And I think that's next time. That has to be on that list.
We have to take you.
Yeah, has to be on the list.
Yeah, that would be such a good time. Yeah.
Has there been any challenges though too, Miriana, along the way? Because no journey into Japan is without its little bumps. But have you not really had that? It sounds to me like you've really matched each other's hearts together and worked from a place of people to people to make things work. But is there anything that's hicked you up, been a hiccup that you've got over that you could share?
Yeah, I think so. I think, when I think about the challenges we've faced, so obviously we've got a language aspect of that. So I mean, and we've got, one of our team members, as I mentioned, Seishi, I feel for him because I've been reflecting on this a little bit too, because I think through COVID, what's happened is some of the English, I'm just thinking about our Japanese customers, some of the English skills, because when you're constantly in it all the time and you're meeting face to face, you get to be able to use English a lot, right?
Mm.
Whereas, and so sometimes it's an easy default because we have Seishi there just to, do everything in Japanese. So I've sort of having to unpick that and reverse it slightly because it's and as opposed to and or. So that's one challenge that we've had, because I think in some instances we may be able to do things slightly faster, even more faster, because it's the questions. And so usually, what I find is we'll get one question, but behind that one question is 10 other questions. And so you've got to go methodically through, and of course, if everything, is in Japanese, so then we've just got to, methodically go through that. But I'm just, in my mind, I was thinking, oh gosh, we could be, which is fine, but I think we could be utilising when people are time poor. It's just, how can we be a little bit more efficient? So, we're working on that. And I think that in that respect, that has held up potentially, our launch date in August. It probably could have been a bit sooner, but it's because it's the sort of, toing and froing, and we haven't got anyone up in country, so we're having to do everything, online. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And I think the other challenge too is that we tend to, and which we try to front foot, we tend to push a lot of product, because we like it here in New Zealand, without really actually saying, is that really what they want? So
we need,
So we've always come up going, look, we don't know everything. We've got some concepts, but we're very much into co-design, and I think that's been quite refreshing for our customers, because they go, New Zealanders usually come up, we see them once, and then we don't see them again. You come up with all your stuff, and then you go away for 2 years, and you're not really open enough to actually say, what do you think? How can we improve it? So that hasn't been our model. And I think that's why part of we've been able to do things a little bit faster, because we are, a little bit more open in that respect. And I think the other challenge, when I mentioned, that gold standard claims system, what we tend to do here in New Zealand is we will do science and research. And again, we do what we think the science and the research should be, without thinking about what the end opportunity is.
Yeah.
And we know, because we've been doing clinical trials, and some of the clinicals that we picked up from what other New Zealand businesses have done don't fit the spec for the functional food claim system. And so I'm thinking, and this is not cheap. It's not a cheap process or approach. And so, what we've been, again, this is all learning, is saying, actually, we work with the customer, we design back from that, we think about, what is the bioactive we're targeting. Then if we have to do, the clinicals, then we're actually a lot more disciplined in terms of actually, what that science looks like. So that's, again, something we've had to get across and be, a bit more confident in terms of our approach, because when you have limited resource, you've got to be quite more efficient. So I think that for us, has been the challenge with some of the products we've currently got up there. But like I said, for future products coming on stream, I think that's also supported us to get better.
Really interesting.
Awesome learning
gold
there.
Standard on the claims. That's really interesting to hear. For real big shout out to Japan that they are top class in that, and how much we can learn. And I wondered if you, in your clinical trials you talked about, but you also have focus groups here with Japanese customers, potential customers, and what they're seeing and feeling about the products when they're here, as well as, say, the distributors. Maybe they're part of your focus group as well.
Yeah. And I think the last time I was up in Japan, we went actually into people's homes, and we actually sat down with them, to understand, especially in this sort of this functional, food and ingredient space, actually what were their habits, what did they actually want, what did they understand about New Zealand, what did they understand about Māori. So those insights were actually excellent in helping us to really, thinking, about our brand, about our storytelling, about the products. And of course, you're absolutely right, Catherine, because now we've got, really good, strong customer relationships. The feedback we're getting in terms of our products concepts, are really valuable. because I would say if you're going up to other markets, and in our experience, you'll have the customer relationship, but actually getting the consumer insights, because you're that far removed, and who holds that data and information. So that relationship with the customer is quite important, because actually now they're able to extract, because now we have the trust and confidence. They're in a co-design process with us. They want to see the best too. So we're actually drawing out that data to help inform our program.
Really interesting. Like how you're bringing out kind of the two sides of Japan, that understanding what the customer is saying, because sometimes in Japan people don't say what they are thinking and they leave it to you to interpret, in that high context society of Japan. And the other thing you mentioned about asking so many questions, there's that real contrast, right? It's like you'll have so many questions asked, you think that's all the information they need, but there's many, many, many other things going on that is not asked and assumed, and just you should understand, because I didn't finish that sentence, so you must know what I actually meant to say but didn't say. So you're having to sort of deal with that quite delicately, I think, but also bravely as you go through things.
Yeah, and I think that humility and just being there's a sense of vulnerability in that too, but to be fair, it's the truth, because we don't know everything. And so always saying around partnership, it's how we express our relationship with each other, how we start. And actually we start with karakia, or even this is online, or just in terms of how we do things, or to bring us all into the space together. And perhaps they may share, we've had poetry, just different ways of, again, bringing us together.
Love it.
So, no, we're not experts, but, it's just, I guess that's just how we do things. But when we did go into the homes, one thing the women make, and especially the majority of the women that we meet with, they do make all of the purchasing decisions, even down to the car, which I was quite, they really, and when we looked at some of their range of products, and, they could have had maybe 10, and they said, oh, what does your partner or husband have? And there'd be one protein powder, and you just, so again, it was just, it was very, and they were so, generous to allow us into their homes.
Yeah.
And
that's a very precious and special invitation to receive.
Oh,
really. And credit to
wonderful.
Your team to have arranged that, because that's a really important piece that I think many F&B exporters to Japan probably never get the chance to do. So that's golden for you.
Yeah, we pretty much found our marketing and sales team, I think, our biggest champions, I think, for our products. So
with that
amazing.
One-on-one sort of contact with those people.
Wow.
They will be looking forward to August as well for your launch.
How exciting. Is there something too that you think Japan does really, really well that's stand out for you, that maybe New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, could adopt or use to its advantage in some way?
I talked about the claims system. I really feel like they're very clear, I think, in terms of their requirements. So I enjoy the discipline around that. I think also too, what I've noticed, and it's when they come out here, that they've the standard, and I guess this comes back to lean, manufacturing and things like that. When you go to and visit their operations, everything is, the automation, the way that they do things is precision, right? I was having a slight heart attack. Well, not heart attack, but maybe it was panic attack. I wasn't too sure. Actually, there's a lot of mixed feelings. But, when they were coming to look here in New Zealand, and, and everything's fine here, but there it's next level. So you never know how they're going to receive what we do here in New Zealand to the standards that they have there. So, but what I'd like to say is that the last visit we had from one particular customer was, a big tick. So,
good.
So that was fantastic. But I think how they operate and how they do things there is actually next level. But what I appreciate about that is the fact that everything is of quality, and so that for me too, I think, is exceptional when you think about the quality that our customers in terms of their expectations, and we wouldn't want anything less.
Exactly.
So they're very upfront about that.
Something to aspire to and to work towards, isn't it? So great to have that thing that you can see how to do it potentially, right? Or they might even guide you on how to take that next step, whatever that might be.
Well, I think, and that's been interesting too, with a couple of customers that have come out to potentially set up manufacturing capability here to ensure that that quality. So that's some of the discussions we're having. So them to have a New Zealand base, which supports our projects. So we're pretty keen on exploring that further.
I really want to ask you about kiwi fruit powder.
What
is kiwi fruit powder used for as an ingredient?
Yeah, and that's a really great question, and that's why we launched our kiwi fruit powders into Japan, because of that, the excellent brand recognition with zespri. It's a very familiar fruit, with Japanese consumers, and so the kiwi fruit powder. So our green kiwi fruit powder is called Actazin. And that really supports people who, suffer from constipation. So it improves bowel movement. And there is science that, through clinicals that have proven that. So that's, I guess, the health benefit, around the green kiwi fruit powder. So you wouldn't have to have, lots and lots of kiwi fruit. You could just basically take the powder to be able to support you if that's a health issue for you.
And also portable, right? If you can't take kiwi fruit with you on the train in Japan, and you've got sticks, you can use them and have that same benefit. Brilliant.
Yeah, we've got a chewable, tablet. So there's many forms and formats that you can take that in. The gold kiwi fruit, which is Livox, which has actually won a number of I think Prebiotic of the Year awards in Asia, Europe, North America. Now that's really good to improve, I guess, to ensure that you've got more of a healthy stomach. So, gut health. So, to really, I guess, balance your microbiome. So, which is quite important, because then that's, good around immunity, around cognitive function. So those are the powders, and how those powders are then used by our customers. They may add them, this is just an example, maybe to a whole milk powder, and because a lot of, especially for elderly people, and that's just how we're formulating, is that they can't digest that whole milk powder. So the green kiwi fruit powder, the Actazin, actually helps them absorb the protein better. So that's a great combination. So those are the types of our boost range. That's what we call it. The boost range is really, then we've got Mama Boost for postnatal mothers, Bella Boost, with collagen and kiwi fruit powder. So there's many ways actually that we're formulating to be able to tell the story around the health benefits. So the kiwi fruit powder for us, great story from New Zealand. And we've got two, when I think about the businesses, we shareholders and we growers of kiwi fruit, so and of zespri, and then Fonterra, I guess, is the other group that supports us because of their dairy platform or protein platform. And so they've been helping us with some of our other formulations. So again, we're really leveraging on really great New Zealand businesses, especially in our entry into Japan, to be able to combine and tell those stories around those great New Zealand, whether it's the whole fruit, the ingredients, and then we come in and sort of join everything together, I guess.
Brilliant. Goodness me.
What's your one nugget? We need to ask it. We ask everyone a one nugget or a gem of advice from your experience so far.
If I really think of my experience, and I think what's really worked well for us has been, I talked about it before, it's around that Manaakitanga. It is around that care and that respect and that humility. I've found that's really held us in good stead, listening, being able to understand, that relationship. I feel our approach into Japan, that to me is number one, is being able to be caring and kind. So I think, because obviously a lot of people say, it takes a long time, and it does, but actually that value to me really stands out. And I think, I'm really excited in terms of the progress we've made. I think, the future for us in Japan is going to be amazing. And, there's just so much alignment there. And I think, that Manaakitanga for me has been the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that kindness, from what you've said with the co-design, really shines through there, because you're not telling Japan what it should do, and Japan's not saying, no, we don't do it that way. You're actually trying to find your middle ground where you're taking the best from both. And that, I think, is an example of kindness, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of foreigners coming in and saying, we've got this great thing, you should like it too.
You should do it like this.
and it's oversized and it doesn't fit in your kitchen, but anyway, you should love it, and
because it's great.
Yeah, because we love it,
Yep.
So I'm sure your approach is very refreshing to Japanese consumers, that's for sure.
We're excited about the promotion you've got coming up in August with Good, and we look forward to helping you in some way promote that. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about today that we haven't covered?
It's funny, I'll circle back around to education, because for us, and I think about the programs that we do have at Wakatū, and, I've got 2 young women interns actually, who, I don't know how this happened, but both of them have actually got very strong Japanese links. One, we had a sister town here in Motueka, so she went and lived there over in Japan for a year. And then I was just thinking, well, that's sort of interesting, that the fact that the 2 interns, have that experience. So they've been on the journey with us, from packaging design and, in the meetings, practicing the Japanese. So, it's been pretty awesome. But we have a relationship, and one of the MOUs we signed was with KUAS, which is the Kyoto University of Applied Sciences. And we've started that relationship by having one of their students work on a, particular project for us. We'll have our second student hopefully coming through. We've got some projects around climate, but really wanting to understand what Japan's position and focuses around, climate change policy, regulation and things like that. So I'm hoping one of these. So for us, we've started that exchange, and, I'm hoping that we will be sending students or team members there as well. So for us, bringing the next generation through to understand and learn, and that reciprocity between, both us and them, I think for us is the build. Because as we see a lot of opportunity getting into the different learning institutes, again, just to, start to build the awareness of who we are, what we're doing. So I think that particular program of work and the people we work with there has been really awesome as well. So I'm really keen on actually some of the biggest strategic programs of work for Wakatū. For example, we have big collaborations. We've got collaborations happening in Europe, but Japan is probably our next port of call when it comes to some of the work we're doing in climate change. So there's a bit going on.
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Wow,
fantastic. How amazing that interns have a Japan connection.
Yeah. Not Nelson.
No, it wasn't Nelson. No, Motueka is Kiyosata.
Oh.
Which is where?
Kiyosata. So that's Hokkaido.
Oh, right. Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So that's where she went, for a year. So, and I'm actually hoping
a different kind of place to be.
And actually, we were thinking because we've got we'll be heading to Denmark in August actually as well. And so I was saying to the mayor and things, I said, well, actually, we want to do a sister city. And I said, well, maybe we're better to do sister regions. Because if I looked at it in terms of, how these sister city-town relationships happened back in the day, and thinking about how communities evolve, and I'm thinking, because you're exactly on your point, so I'm not thinking, anyway.
Well, region's a great idea. Why not? Because it's not only the city connection, it is the region, and you're coming from land, sea, right, and also mountain, etc. So why not do it from region to region? That could be an awesome thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's the next plan of attack, and we'll see what happens in the Netherlands and Denmark when we visit to see if we can get that, and then hopefully we can have Kyoto. That's because of the Kyoto Protocol.
Yeah,
Well,
we're really excited to see what's coming through, and obviously Jandal's team are here to help you in any way. Thank you so much. Well, congratulations on being a fantastic, successful Jandal in Japan, and thanks for telling us today the story about Wakatū and all that you are doing here. And thank you very, very much again for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, Jane.
Wow. Amazing.
Totally. How exciting. So many things coming up for them, and they're doing so much between New Zealand and Japan.
Yeah. I love the way they're doing it.
Selecting Japan as their first sort of market to have an entry into.
Yeah, with this brand new products that they're bringing out. So that's super exciting. I cannot wait for August. Wow. I can see how they have achieved so much in the time that they have, with the way they're approaching Japan and the way they're working with Japan, rather than just showing up and being like, hey, we're the New Zealanders and here's our stuff, you should like this.
Seems
Bye.
to be real connection, right? And they've selected a great team here, and hopefully someday we can meet Seshi and find out some more from him. But just the things that she's brought up there, right, with the hallelujah, good on you, Japan, with your claim system, right? The claim system, the gold standard there that she brought out, which I thought was amazing, and it's got me intrigued into thinking a little bit more about that, because the claims are essentially, at the end of the day, it's the customer are looking at that. What are you telling me about this product that is true?
Yes.
What can I be guaranteed when I have this product, put it into my body, put it on my face, whatever it might be, right? So those are absolutely amazing. Wouldn't it be great to have that replicated back in New Zealand to the same extent? That could be quite amazing for New Zealand.
Yeah. And once you've got it done here, that translates to other places, I'm sure, right? Like gold standard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And also just saying that how Japan is so stable compared to other markets, that was obviously a very attractive thing. In the middle of, it's an island in the middle of a lot of things going on around it, but pulling that out as a point for coming in here. And also noticing that Japan is a great investor in other countries, and how she's linking that to possibilities of having brought from New Zealand to Japan and going globally from Japan to other regions is a really great concept.
Collaborating.
I don't think any of our other guests so far have talked about Japan being the centre for New Zealand products to go elsewhere.
No, we've not Japan. Heard that yet. No.
That was brilliant. I loved that. That sort of really sat with me really well. And her other comments too about bringing the culture together. And, karakia at the beginning of a call, and then exchanging that Japan side does poetry. I mean, who's doing that? That's just brilliant when you're connecting New Zealand and Japan together. How are you showing each other's culture and perhaps bringing Japan a little bit out of itself and bringing itself into its traditional kotowazas and poems and tanka? Maybe. Tanka, right? Poems 5.
Who knows?
5, 3, 5. Amazing. I love that. That's really bringing heart to heart.
Yeah. I think that would go a long way and would be dearly loved by the Japanese side to be able to contribute in some way, and maybe their own original way as well. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to try some of the powders that have been produced, and they sound really exciting. And head on down to that, the chef who's got the kitchen in his place, and see what's going on, what's cooking over there. That would be amazing. It was just such a great episode, and I really hope that people got a great amount out of that and just understood a little bit more about where Wakatūs come from and the history and the connections that they're now bringing and showing into Japan. I think that's just phenomenal and a real insight that I hadn't had before we had a chat today.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely.
Really thanks to Miriana and the team, and shout out to New Zealand Story Group who introduced us originally, and really I think that's a very precious thing. Thank you very much for being generous in the introduction.
Well, keep listening. More amazing jandals coming to you very soon.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out our guests' links in the show notes.
This podcast is brought to you today by Catherine O'Connell Law and Pod Launch with Jane. If you have a great story you think should be on the show, come and find us on LinkedIn or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Mata ne!